Hey guys, how you going? And welcome back to another episode of In the Sheds. Looking forward to this one as per usual. It is a Wednesday for the live sports chat, and we've got a lot to talk about today because there was a lot of shock results in the AFL. There was some huge games in the rugby league. Super Rugby was just as good as always, especially over there in New Zealand right now. Super Rugby Aotearoa is just unbelievable right now. Obviously, we're here with the co-host, Entertain House. How you going, champion?
Yeah, good, mate. New Zealand is the place to be with all these big crowds at the moment. We just want to be in a big crowd supported by sport, but yeah, good round of rugby league, AFL, and Super Rugby was awesome.
I just want to point out here, obviously I'm from Queensland, right? And I'm in Fiji right now, which is, it's got nothing. There's no viruses here in Fiji. And also in Queensland, it's pretty good right now. We've been insulting Victoria for a couple of weeks now, Hayden. And, I believe you should apologise to Victoria. I believe you should start apologising to Victoria because New South Wales, you've been a little bit naughty. So, Hayden, do you have anything to say to our Victorian viewers out there?
To the Victorian viewers, on behalf of New South Wales, we want to get back to the footy, so we are sorry for our little outbreak that we've caused, and hopefully next week we're all good and we can shake hands.
I just absolutely threw that on him. He never knew I was going to say that or anything. I just absolutely threw that on him. To AFL to talk about today, we've got the NRL and we've got Super Rugby. Obviously, if you want to see our tips for all three of these sports, jump onto the In the Shades podcast YouTube channel. Now, guys, as of next week, actually, as of this Sunday, for the Sunday episode with Maitland Brown, Renegades women's cricketer, we are actually moving the podcast over to the In the Sheds podcast YouTube channel. So it's going to be jumping off BKRsport because it gets lost in between all the live streams that I do on weekends. So we're going to move it across to its own channel and we're going to chuck the tips there and then maybe create another channel for the clips, but we're going to keep the tips on there and also the actual podcast itself. But enough talking here, guys. Let's get straight into the AFL first because it was a wild weekend. It was a really, actually, Hayden can attest to this because I went for all the underdogs. I went for all the damn well underdogs in the tipping, and I was one off a perfect round. What were your thoughts on that one, Hayden?
You did very good. I did not too bad as well. I think my big one, Port Adelaide over the Giants. A lot of people, including yourself, were going the Giants and weren't taking Port too seriously. But you did fantastic picking those upsets. Very disappointing, the Western Bulldogs. 3 wins in a row. Great record against Carlton. But there you go, another loss under the belt.
Well, look, let's go through some of these scorelines. So the scorelines, obviously the first one, we are Geelong, the greatest team of all. Geelong Cats, 73-46 over the Brisbane Lions. Fantastic result there. No one believed in us. Everyone was saying Brisbane this, Brisbane that. But was it the SCG? And good night, Irene. Next matchup was Collingwood versus Hawthorn with Collingwood 59-27 over the Hawks there. A lot of people believed the Hawks were going to come through in that one, but they did not. They're usually a bit of a bogey team. They're usually a bit of a bogey team, but this time around they did not come through. 79-73 for Freo over St Kilda. Gee whiz, I stopped talking there because I can't even believe myself that I tipped Freo over St Kilda, but I did and get around. They were actually down by 36 points, I think, at quarter time or something like that, which is just.
They went home after the first half, St Kilda. They played the first quarter, and then they just packed their bags, went home.
So see you later. You know what? We're done. Then we got West Coast Eagles coming over Adelaide Crows, 67-34. Not too impressive, but it is what it is. Melbourne Demons tipped them again. 80-63. I've got to stop saying I tipped them again because we all know that I tipped them again. Hayden. We got the D's. I think they were the underdogs too over the Suns, weren't they, Hayden?
I think they were. I thought this game was pretty decent. Both sides turned up and put in a good performance. Suns were leading at one point, but D's too good.
Yeah, that's good because I'm pretty sure you said that was going to be. Well, we both said it was going to be a pretty boring game, that one. Pretty shit game, that one. But it turned out to be a pretty good one. Then we had the Essendon versus North Melbourne game with Essendon coming out 67-53 winners. Port Adelaide, obviously, 63-46 over the Giants. I think that was really close at three-quarter time, but Port Adelaide really pulled it away in the final quarter. Richmond, 34-26 over the Swans in a really low-scoring game there. Wow. Richmond, 10 behinds and Swans, 8 behinds. And then Carlton, wow, 52-point winners over your doggies, mate. What's going on there? Let's get into that. Let's get into that.
What's going on there, mate? I don't know, mate. 3 wins in a row. I was pretty confident with this match, especially our record against Carlton. Got a few injuries we're waiting to come back from, but there's still no excuses. Still a quality side of players and very disappointing there. But props to Carlton. They got a good start, which is what they've needed. You've been saying throughout the podcast that the thing they need throughout the season is to get these good starts. And for the first time in 7 years, Carlton are in the friggin' 8.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, mate. It's crazy. But like I said, Carlton, and you said it perfectly as well. I started out by saying that Carlton are really close to being there. They just need to sort out their slow starts, and then their second halves they're usually next level. Besides the Geelong game in the fourth quarter where they got trounced and still ended up winning, mind you, but they got trounced that fourth quarter against Geelong by, I think, 39 points or 40 points. But they need to get their slow starts sorted, and that's what they did. That's exactly what they did against the Dogs, and people were still doubting. But then, obviously, that second half, they blew them away and ended up winning by 52 points. Like, that's just mad. And it's like, I don't know, man. They've got a bit of a difficult matchup this week, but Carlton, for me, I said at the beginning of the season, and I know a lot of people were saying Gold Coast Suns this, Gold Coast Suns that, but I always thought Carlton, even last year, was showing improvement, and they're on their way up. And although they're not there yet, and this is what you said, you were like, they get some quarters right and then some quarters wrong, and when they get it right, it's really right, and when they get it wrong, it's really wrong. So they're an interesting team. Do you rate them above the Suns in regards to that aspect?
No, only because the thing with Carlton is I can't see them finding a level of consistency, whereas I guess the same could be said about the Suns, but I think the Suns were really starting to be a consistent side this year. We both didn't have them as finals, and they definitely won't be there. I don't think either of these sides personally will be there, but I think Carlton are one of those sides that they turn up in their moments, but there is a level of consistency that they still need to learn. But once they do get that consistency right, I think we can definitely put them a bit higher than the Gold Coast Suns.
So the only thing that's different for me in regards to Gold Coast Suns and Carlton is that Carlton, I really like their team list. Beside, I feel like, and I'm sorry to say this, Gold Coast, but I feel like Gold Coast are a very one-man team. I knew that as soon as Rao went down that they would struggle, and look, the D's aren't anything impressive. I know they were only 1 point short of Geelong, but in the same sense, I don't really rate the D's this year, and that's why I tip the D's over the Suns, because I definitely don't rate the Suns without Rao. And although they've got a young team there, like, look at the team that Carlton's got. You got Paddy Cripps, you got Jack Nunes, you got Sam Doherty. I like Cade Simpson as well. I like Cade Simpson at the back. You got Eddie Betts. I know he's not young, but Eddie Betts there that is really mentoring the young blood. I don't know, man. I think this Carlton team. And they've got Whitering as well, Jacob Whitering. Like this, they've got Jack Martin. No, I would go to say Levi Casbolt, but he misses bloody everything. But look, I don't know. I think Carlton are a definitely up and coming team, man. I think I would rate them above the Suns, and I reckon they'll finish above the Suns this year. I'm going to say it, and I know a lot of people might disagree with me there, but I'm going to say that the Blues are going to finish above the Suns this year. What do you reckon about that?
Yeah, I could see it happening. Especially with Rao being out the season. I disagree with them being a one-man team. I think they've got a lot of young talent coming through. I forget the name of him. The debutant that played on the weekend was fantastic for him. Obviously, they went down, but had a really good debut and promising signs there for the Suns. But I'll agree with you there. I think the Blues will finish on top of the Suns in the 2020 season.
I think it'll be interesting. But I want to get into this, obviously, this next big one, which is obviously the Cats over the Brisbane Lions. That was a huge game. And the Cats, obviously, they went to the SCG. Brisbane Lions had to come down. And I think this kind of might have proven that the Brisbane Lions aren't exactly all that when they're not at the Gabba, because they struggle. They struggle all the time when they're not at home. And the thing that I find interesting is that they usually struggle when they're not at home. So when they had the 2 home finals last year, everyone thought that they were automatically going to get into the prelim, but they didn't. They lost their 2 home finals. So it's like, 1, are they going to choke if they get there again? And 2, if they're not at home, are they definitely goners? Because Geelong wiped the floor with them. Like, I'm telling you, I watched the game and we dominated Brisbane.
Yeah, no more sleeping on Geelong. I'm on them at the moment. They looked really good against the Lions. Lions are probably my favourite for the flag, but it changes every week. I think betting right now, we spoke about last week, has the bloody Giants up there. Previous week it was the Lions, but yeah, the Cats, they're on the rise.
Cats are on the rise, mate. We've got a bit of a mix of young blood, old blood, mid blood, every blood possible, A, B, B. We're all over the shop. But Paddy Dangerfield's obviously he's always fantastic, and we really get led through the midfield. But with that Brisbane game, like, Brisbane just weren't. They just weren't able to cope with it. But the thing with Geelong is that, like, we played Collingwood this week, and I'm not saying who I'm going to tip, we all know who I'm going to tip though. But actually, you know who I'm going to tip. But like, we're probably going to win that game, and then we're going to lose to whoever we play the week after, like Freo over at Optus Stadium. You know what I mean? Like, we're the type of team that, like I've said this every single week. We can make the big teams look like pretenders, but we can also make the shit teams look like contenders. You know, that's the weird thing with us. Like, we'll go and beat Brisbane Lions. We'll go and beat bloody Port Adelaide. We'll go and beat bloody Collingwood. Like, and then we'll go and lose to Fremantle over at Optus. Do you still think we're, like, I'm going to say we're definitely contenders. Actually, I'm not even asking you if we're contenders, but do you agree with me in that regard?
Yes, and I'll agree with you with contenders. As I said, I've been sleeping on them, but I think they are contenders and they're definitely showing it. So I won't reveal my tip either, but good things from the Cats.
Yeah, I know. If you tip Collingwood, I'm going to slap you. Yeah, to be fair, though, there's going to be a good game. That's going to be a cracker game. I don't know. I don't know what game I'm live streaming this weekend, man. You know, I've got either the Geelong Cats versus Collingwood game, or I got the Roosters versus Raiders game. You know, it's a cracker Thursday night of 40 either way. And then obviously the A-League starting this week as well. We've got the Super Rugby going. It's just getting too hectic, mate. So, yeah, basketball, baseball starting next week. Like, this is just getting wild, son. It's getting wild.
Getting keen for the whole new game of NBA. Getting pretty keen for that.
Oh, man, that's out of control. But Brisbane Lions, do you, like, look, they are still obviously, they are still one of the favourites, and I don't think that we should look too much into the result as such, but I do think we should look into the fact that their away form is not great.
Yes, I agree. I still think they'll be a side that I'm not sure about top four. They should be top four, but I'd definitely put them in, say, top six.
No, they're top four.
I think
they're top four.
You have them top four for sure?
Easy.
Okay, well, I'll stick with it now. I guess top four is a lock, but the worry is the away games. It really is a big factor, and you've got to win away games to be the best of the best.
To be fair, though, I shouldn't say it's a lot, because honestly, this season is so out of control. Like,
unpredictable, week in, week out.
After Brisbane lost to Geelong, there was at one point, I think going into Friday night's game with Collingwood Hawthorn, there was a chance that Brisbane could finish out of the 8 for the week. Obviously, they're finishing third, but that was because, you know, Essendon didn't win by enough to go above in percentage. Collingwood, they weren't on the same amount of points. There was a chance.
The dog spot?
Who? Collingwood? Was the Dogs in the 8? The Lions?
The Dogs were in the 8 for the last 2 weeks, and they dropped out after that 50-point
Lions
loss.
are third. Lions are third because all the underdogs won. So, like, none of the big dogs actually ended up. St Kilda probably would have jumped them, I believe. If they had won by enough of them, it comes down to percentage. But, you know, it was weird because before that Collingwood Hawthorn game, there was a genuine shout that Brisbane, you know, might not be in the 8. And that's the unpredictability of this year, man, because, you know, just think of a team like Brisbane, who everyone was like, this is the red hot contenders. But did they play every single game in Brisbane from round 2, when the season restarted, until last week when they played the SCG?
I'm not too sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. That'd be interesting because hold on, I'll quickly have a look. So they played the Gabba against Port Adelaide. They played at the Gabba against Adelaide. They played at the Gabba against West Coast, and they played the Gabba against Fremantle. And the first game when they played the MCG is when they lost. So they've only played two games this year. One at the MCG and one at the SCG, and they've lost both those games. But every game they've been at the Gabba, they've won every single game. So that's actually quite an interesting thing. And I think that is something to be read into. I think that is something to be read into. The Brisbane Lions are a fantastic team, but I guess there is something to do with that home ground advantage, man. I guess there really is something to do with that home ground advantage. This is worrying times, mate. Fremantle versus St Kilda. Obviously, Freo coming up on top of their 79-73. St Kilda, what's going on?
Mate, as I said, they went home in the first quarter. They started this game really, really well. They looked like they were going to go on to win it, but Freo, they came back. Matt Fyfe didn't even make the side, did he, from my understanding?
I didn't actually watch the game, mate. No, he definitely would have played, surely. Did he not actually play?
Did he? I don't think he did.
I'm going to have a look right now. Yeah, he did play. We got kicked 2 goals, mate. What's going on with you, mate?
Kicked 2 goals.
Kicked 2 goals.
Well, I wasn't watching too closely, but I had this game flickered on and off, and
2 goals, 18 disposals, buddy, 8 kicks, buddy, 10. Well,
big game, mate. Big game.
What game are you watching?
There you go. It was all fight.
And no, it wasn't. There was also, Schultze and, Taberner, Darcy. Gee whiz, I tell you what, they're all having a decent old game there. But no, like I said last week, man, with St Kilda, this is why I tipped Freo. And I didn't tip Freo with the confidence that Freo would win. I actually didn't even think Freo would win. I tipped Freo because I thought that there was going to be a game, and I said these words exactly. There was going to be a game that St Kilda proved that they're not going to be a convincing team. They're not going to be a consistent team this year. They're going to lose games where they should win, you know? And I said that exactly, that there's going to be a game. And I didn't think it was going to be Freo, but I was going to take Freo because that was a game they should be winning easily. And they didn't, you know, and they're up by 36 points. And that is the whole proof of exactly what I was saying, that St Kilda are not the consistent team that everyone thinks. You know, they're not that team. And going forward, do you still, like, I don't know, like, are they still a favorite for a top 4 spot, or they're still top 8 though? What do you say?
Probably top 8. Yeah, I doubt top 4. I think the Lions, Port, the Cats. They're the teams to beat at the moment.
I was waiting for the damn well Cats, and I'm surprised you didn't say Collingwood, because Collingwood's still damn well there.
Collingwood's probably that one that I'd put in 4th, but it's almost a fight at the moment. The league's so unpredictable.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there is a fight. And Essendon currently are in the bloody damn well top 4. Like, you know, something's wrong with Essendon. They're in the top 4, and they're a good team. But you know, Essendon in the top 4 is just actually, you know what? Essendon beating North Melbourne. What are your thoughts on that one? Because Essendon, obviously, I tipped them for I think you tipped them for the 8 too, didn't you?
I don't think I had them. I might have. I don't think I had them there. I think I had them just outside. Obviously, Essendon being in the top 4, they've got something to prove. And if they can back it up and stay there, they might be... I wouldn't put them as a contender, but they might be a threat against the bigger teams this year.
Well, they did beat Collingwood, obviously. And North Melbourne, I guess, are kind of thereabouts. I put...
North Melbourne, no, Collingwood, yeah.
Yeah, I put North Melbourne about 10th. I think I did. I think that's where I got them, just outside that 8. But Essendon, I put in 7th, and I wouldn't put them too far above there, to be honest. Like, we don't know, but I've still got my top 4 pretty locked in. The bottom of the top 8, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th spot is interesting. But I've still got Essendon, probably even 6th now. You know, 7th, 6th, 7th. I don't know about Richmond this year, man. That's actually a good question right there in itself. Actually, where are Richmond at right now for you?
A roller coaster, an absolute roller coaster. They're on a roller coaster.
They did technically win, though.
They what?
They technically won, though. They did technically. That's all you need to do. Like, I know you can only play.
How unconvincing do you have to be one of those declared top teams to almost lose to the Sydney Swans? Like, it just baffles me. Yeah, they got the job done. It was an ugly win. A very low-scoring game as well.
Yeah, 8 points difference, yeah.
Richmond haven't convinced me at all at the moment. I guess the draw against Collingwood should be saying a bit, but there's nothing to go.
Collingwood haven't been that impressive either, though, mate. Like, that draw, when we first saw it, we were like, okay, these two teams went so hard at it. There's a reason for this. Like, they just were so good defensively, so good attack. Like, there was people were talking about, like, there being a reason for that with two good teams. But now as the season's gone on, you look back on that and you think, well, they're just two average teams fighting it out for an average scoreline of a draw. Like, that wasn't anything special between two teams that they showed nothing. And Collingwood have got their own problems of their own now. Like we said last week, we're not going to get into. But, you know, Richmond, 8 points of the Swans. I got the Swans in the bottom 4, mate. You know, I got the Swans in the bottom 4. And Richmond do have a lot of injuries, but in the same sense, like, you know, everyone's got injuries. You got to pump through it. And Kane Lambert, he's a great player. I really do like Kane Lambert. And Cameron McIntosh had a good game as well. But the Swans shouldn't be within 8 points. I'm sorry. If you're a contender for this premiership, this flag this year, the Swans should not be within 8 damn well points. And you should be kicking more than 34 points against the Swans. And you should be kicking more than 4 goals. They had 14 shots on goal, and they got 4 goals and 10 behinds. I'm sorry, that shouldn't be happening against the Sydney Swans. Like I said, I got the Swans in the bottom 4. We did skip a game there, though. Port Adelaide versus GWS. Port Adelaide, we kind of started to write them off a little bit last week, but I think from what I heard from you think they're right back on track, mate.
Did I write them off?
We didn't write them off, but we said that there is definitely massive question marks, and there definitely still is massive question marks because in the third quarter, GWS did romp home. But then again, in the AFL, and I'll let you talk in a second, but in the AFL, I find that, and I think everyone knows this, the first 2 quarters and the fourth quarter is usually dominated by the team who wins. And then the third quarter is usually dominated by the team who doesn't win, because the first half, I don't know what it is. I actually can't really explain it, but I find that a team gets a decent lead going into halftime, and then if a team gets a decent lead going into halftime, the third quarter, the other team will actually come back. And in the fourth quarter, that other team that was already leading at halftime will fly ahead. I don't know. I find that the AFL. And I guess that's kind of what we saw with the AFL with the Port Adelaide versus GWS game. Do you, like I said, do you think Port are back to being flag favourites?
100%. All flag favourites. Oh, that's a big one.
Be
but
careful,
contender I was going to say, I thought you were going to say contenders, but flag favourites potentially. I think the big thing about Port is it's not just one player who, and definitely not a one-man team. They're all gelling together really nicely. And whether it be home or away from home, they're playing some really good footy at the moment. So I think they're a huge chance this year if they keep it up.
Yeah, they are. Well, Charlie Dixon's been having... He didn't have a great game. He had a goal and a behind. Farrell had a goal, 2 behinds. No one kicked over a goal. So that was actually a really team effort there for Port Adelaide. It was actually a really team effort. You know, Boat got a goal, Butters, Gray, Motlop, Buddy, everyone basically got a goal there, except for Wines. Sorry, Ollie Wines, but you didn't get a goal, mate. But basically, everyone. Jeremy Cameron kicked 2 for GWS. Look, GWS, like I said, that's why I've got them in 7th to 8th this year. I think they make the 8. And everyone was starting to rate them very highly. And I can't believe that Buddy, the betting agency that we looked at last week, had them as the favourites. Like, I couldn't believe that. Especially, look, they beat Geelong in round 1 by a decent amount, but that was in 20-minute quarters. And that's a completely different game when no one had any mad mindset that we all have nowadays. Like, this world is shithouse right now. Like, my mind is shithouse. Everyone's mind is shithouse. So I can tell you right now, that round 1 was played in completely different circumstances to what we're in right now. And, I don't know about GWS, but Port Adelaide, I never said they were gone. I just think there's massive question mark, and there is massive question marks on this team. Like, I don't know about the consistency. I'm not even too sure who they play this week. And I guess, I don't even know this. Is everyone moving over to West Coast, or are we actually going to be seeing a West Coast? I think Queensland's still staying as a hub, but I think obviously Western Australia, that's where like Geelong and Collingwood and Freo and West Coast are going back over to. And I think we might eventually end up seeing like all teams kind of congregate that way because
you got the Giants and Swans who are looking at potentially being relocated with all these Western Sydney outbursts.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like we could be seeing like everyone kind of just like go over to Western Australia.
Get over there. You're over here. You're here.
The thing is, man, it's difficult to say because. Who's to say, and I'm not throwing this out there really, but who's to say Queensland doesn't have a second outbreak as well? Like we're amazing in Queensland. Like we are phenomenal human beings in Queensland. Like we are unbelievable. We won 8 years in a row in the state of origin. Don't ever forget that, New South Wales fans. We're just a bloody amazing. But I'll get off that. Sorry guys, I'll get off that topic for a second. There is a chance that could happen. Do you reckon we could possibly see everyone just kind of get thrown over to West Coast? So even though there's only one stadium there. There's 2 stadiums. No, there's the old. Actually, there's the old stadium too, right? No, that was where Optus got built over, didn't it? Yeah, I don't know.
But if New South Wales, Queensland, and Victoria were all affected, regardless of those other states, I honestly think the league would be cancelled. I don't think they would be able to afford accommodation or what they were going to do for the hubs in these rural areas. And there's always a chance that it could spread over there. Obviously, there is border closures, so it's a chance, but I don't see it happening. I would see the league being cancelled before that happened.
I just realised something. This is what round right now. This is what round. So remember last week we spoke on the podcast. It's round 7 this week. Round 7 this week. Remember how they said after round 9, no matter what, they're going back to Victoria? So, that's what they said. So they said, no matter what, after round 9, we're going back to Victoria. So we've only got 3 weeks until that happens. This week, next week, and the week after. And then apparently everyone's gone back. So we could be only seeing 3 more weeks of AFL because I'm telling you right now, there's no way that the AFL is continuing if they remove and they take all the teams back to Victoria. So, we don't even have a schedule for round 9 yet. We've only got Buddy up until round 8. So, interesting times. Like, I know we kind of went over it last week, but I genuinely believe that this might only last 3 weeks. I genuinely have a feeling right now that we may only get... And I know the AFL doesn't want to do this, but I guess the only option at this point, is to take it to Western Australia and play it
But like, how would you do it though? Because there's only like one stadium there, unless they have to use like ovals. And actually, they could do that. They could use like
local grounds.
I guess just for me, man, like, and we'll end it now before we get into our AFL tips. But for me, you know, it's worrying times, and I don't know. I think maybe we might see 3 more weeks. Now, guys, we're going to be moving into the AFL tips for the podcast. So these aren't actually on the podcast. Like I said, these are on the In the Sheds podcast YouTube channel. So jump over there right now. Hit that subscribe button. We just hit 220 subscribers, I believe. So let's try and hit 300 by this weekend. But yeah, we do our AFL tips, NRL tips, Super Rugby tips, A-League tips as of next week. Actually, no, maybe we'll do A-League tips. I don't know. We'll see how we go. But yeah, all our tips are over there. So if you haven't checked out the In the Sheds podcast YouTube channel yet, go over there because that's where we're doing our tips right now. Alrighty, guys. Next up, we have the NRL, and let's go through some of these. I'm wearing my Titans shirt. Hey, get around the Titans this week. A lot of Warriors fans. Bit salty, mate. Bit salty. I don't mind Warriors fans. I don't know why I got so much hate from Warriors fans. I guess they believe they got rorted by the referee, just like I feel like every single week, and you know, a lot of fans feel like every single week, especially against the Melbourne Storm. Shout out to the Canberra Raiders. But let's go over some of these score lines. So Roosters 42-16 over the Cowboys. Gee whiz, Cowboys not looking too great this season.
It was 12-6 at half time.
Yeah, well, you know, that's wait, 12-6 to the Roosters, right?
It was 12-6 to the Roosters at half time, and the Cowboys scored the first try of the match.
Yeah, but the Cowboys are shit house. What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Cowboys are shit house. All right? Simple as that. 42-16, Matt Ikuvalu. Woo! Ikuvalu with the 5 tries. Wow. It was 5 tries, right? Not 4? 5? No, I'm talking about the other.
5 tries. 4 tries in the second half, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, son. What a cheeky performance there. Next up, we had the mighty Titans, son. 16-12 over the Warriors. I don't care how shit of a team we beat. We still won a game. And we're shit, so I'll take any win against anybody, son. But we are looking improved, and we've made a few good signs. We're going to talk about this in a second. I'm really looking forward to talking about that because, obviously, there's never been positive stuff from the Titans in about 10 years. Rabbitohs versus the Tigers. Rabbitohs, 18-10 over the Tigers, mate. Just want to remind everyone about my thoughts every single damn week about the Old West Tigers, but we'll get into that in a second. The Sharkies, they lost 56-24 to the Panthers.
No premiership for them. 24. No team that gets
56-24. That's out of control, mate. That's out of control. I refuse. I don't even want to listen to what you're saying because 56-24 is just ridiculous. It's just I don't want to hear anything about it, buddy.
80 points in a match. That's 80 points.
56-24. Both teams shouldn't be conceding that many points. And Panthers concede 24. The Sharks don't even at me. Don't even start me. We're getting off it. Broncos, Bulldogs, 26-8 for the Brisbane Broncos. The Storm, debatably, 20-14 over the Canberra Raiders. Parramatta Eels, 10-4 over the Newcastle Knights. And the St. George Illawarra Dragons, 34-4 over the Manly Seagulls. Now, you know, I will admit when I'm wrong, and I did obviously tip Manly, and I was pretty confident in Manly, but in the same sense, in the end, Dragons ended up favourites. So, in actual fact, buddy, I went with the underdogs, so you should bloody commend me for going for the underdogs.
No way. Dragons were absolute specials, and I'm pretty sure
they were, when you first talked about them, I think they were like $2.20 or something like that. So they're still like I just read that game completely wrong, to be honest. I just read it completely.
I didn't expect that scoreline. I think I had the Dragons to win by about 2-10 max, not by 30.
Yeah, thank Cherry Evans, mate. He was shocking.
Oh,
Cherry Evans was absolutely shocking. We'll get into that game in a second. Let's start off with we don't really need to talk about the Roosters Cowboys game. It's pretty self-explanatory, mate. Like what's the go there? Honestly, actually, you know what we will talk about is the Sydney Roosters' unreal depth. All right, so you know they've got an unreal depth at the moment. The Roosters, you know, they have injuries galore, and yet they're still winning 42-16. You know, they've got injuries galore, and yet look at the team list they can put out here. All right, so they've got Tedesco at fullback. They got Hall, who arguably they're actually apparently wanting to take out because you know Brett Morris didn't play this game. He got taken out just beforehand, and that's why Ikuvalu got to start. Right? That's the case, right? Ikuvalu got to start because Morris. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for this week he's back in the side for Tupou, but last week for Brett Morris. Yeah.
That's the point. So you take out Brett Morris, or you take out Tupou, whatever. Point is that you bring in Ikuvalu, scores 5 tries. Like that. What about that for depth, right? You got Josh Morris, you got Joey Manu, you got Keary, you got Flanagan. Even the forwards like Takiyaho, you got Jake Friend. Where are your Hargraves? That's your starting. Crichton, you know, that's your starting. I'm not really too sure about this Nat Butcher bloke, but Then you got I can't even get over this Roosters team. Like this Roosters team's just unreal.
The NRL players voted for who they thought were best players in best positions. And in regards to the team, the Roosters backline was actually voted number 1 to 6 by all players. So that's crazy.
That's absolutely out of control. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It wasn't 6. It wasn't halfback and 5'8", but it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wasn't Luke Keary there? I think.
Luke Keary might have been there, but I know that Flanagan definitely.
Not Flanagan. No. Sorry.
Yeah, that was. No, it wasn't Cherry Evans. It was Nathan Cleary and Cherry Evans were second and tied second. And who was first for the halfbacks? I think it was
Mitchell Pearce. Mitchell Pearce
was, which was interesting, I thought. But then again, obviously, after Cherry Evans' game against the Dragons, it doesn't surprise me. So, look, I think that Roosters team is just scary, man. Like, this team is honestly out of control.
I think Mitch Orbison would even be good at another club. It's good to be a one-club man for the Roosters, but I think even with someone like the Titans, he provides a lot of experience, and I think he's a big key member of their team, if I'm honest with you.
No. We don't need someone like Orbison right now. Our forwards are looking bang. No. I'm serious. You want to look at our forwards next year? I'll tell you right now, our forwards are looking absolutely bang. Our forwards aren't where we need to be, especially if we can get Fafita. Don't even start me in if we get Fafita. Like, if we get Fafita, that's actually, you know what? We'll move into that right now. So the Titans obviously won 16-12. Yeah, look, Warriors, a few dodgy calls here and there. Titans also got
no penalties.
No penalties.
Penalties.
I do want to say this, though, because everyone always forgets this. And this is, look, I understand the grievance, because if it was against the Titans, I'd be blowing up just the same. But it's like, I can't remember seeing when there should have been a penalty against the Titans. I can't remember seeing it. I watched the game, and I'm pretty realistic. I know my team's shit. I can tell you. I can't, that's the thing. I can't remember it. Actually, there was actually 1 or 2 times there probably should have been. I remember saying on the live stream, I was like, that should have been a penalty. But there wasn't many times. So although people look at the stat of 0 penalties given, you've also got to look at the game itself and see if there actually was deserved penalties. Because yes, 0 penalty. What if you're playing the Roosters? You could look at the Roosters or the Melbourne Storm and be like, okay, they're very disciplined teams. And if you get a 0 penalty count against them, that could be fair enough, to be honest with you. Like, obviously, it's not likely, but in the same against the Titans, it's probably likely. But against, say the Roosters or the Storm, who would normally be quite disciplined, I believe, you'd nearly be like, okay, well, it's not out of the question that there could be 0 penalties there. It's unlikely, but it's not out of the question. What are your thoughts on that one?
I guess you make a good point there, but it just seems really, really odd to me. And like you said, there are a couple. When has that happened before? I don't think that's happened in 2020. It's happened before.
It wouldn't have happened this year, but it would have happened many a time over the years.
I can't get my head around it. I really can't. And I understand that there are probably only 1 or 2, and normally there is, say, maybe 11 to 5 for a normal penalty count, maybe. But I want to
know what the set restart count was, though, because obviously penalties are a lot less this year due to the fact of the set restart, So I would love to know.
If we're talking about set restarts, I'd love to know what Melbourne and Newcastle set restarts were. I'd love to know.
Oh, don't even dare start me on you thinking Parramatta are getting, unfairly disadvantaged. Are you actually trying to allude to that right now? Trying to allude to that right now?
Not disadvantaged, but I do think that the refereeing was poor in regards to the 6 again calls, and I think teams are being favoured. And I think Newcastle and Melbourne were favoured on the weekend.
I'm not going to respond to the Parramatta one after what you guys did to Manly, you dog. Yeah? You want me to talk about that Manly game?
Can Manly get their revenge this week?
Probably not, mate. Probably not. So, yeah, with these Gold Coast Titans, man, obviously, like I said, I've been a part of this club since day dot. I continuously, I lived in Melbourne and I flew up to expect a loss every single week. I lived in Fiji. I would fly across every single week. Well, not every single week, but I would fly across to get to the Titans games. And I missed 2 Titans games in the whole 8 years when we were shit house. And I know we've been through the worst and I know we've been through some good times as well, but I honestly feel really positive about this team going forward. Justin Holbrook is obviously doing some pretty amazing things. We can all see that. You've got Tino from Melbourne, who's one of the best up and coming forwards in the game right now. He looks absolutely incredible. You've got Moeki Fotuaika, who's at the club. There's a potential.
I rate him so highly.
Oh, of course. He's one of the best forwards in the game right now. He's honestly one of the best forwards in the game. He's it's ridiculous.
He's providing a Jason Taumalolo factor. The Titans, for mine, they haven't been playing their best footy, but you've got that one man like your Taumalolo who puts in a performance every week, and that's exactly what Moe's doing at Gold Coast.
Exactly right. He's a fantastic player. He's from the Gold Coast. He loves the team. I reckon he might be a one-club player. It's fantastic to see that we're kind of starting to grow a little bit of a culture at the club, which has been pretty shit for a while now. But then you've also got to think about potentially, if this David Fifita thing does happen to be the case, Ryan James also comes back next year from his ACL. I don't know how good he'll be. I love Ryan, good friend of mine, but in the same sense, I don't know how he's going to be after coming back from such a severe injury. He's had a lot of injuries over time as well, but a great player when he's on. Fantastic player. So our forward line looks incredible next year, especially with David Fifita. But even without Fifita, we've got SASA, who's just come in. We just signed SASA, having an SASA from the Knights, who looks really beast. It'll beef us up as well. And then you've got our back line. We haven't had AJ Brimson this entire season so far. That's I know you don't necessarily rate him top 6 fullback, but I rate him as the sixth fullback. Obviously, you got your Tedesco's and your Drabojeviches and your Pongers and two of us are Sheks and whatnot. And then you've obviously got who's the other fullback we were talking about on the live stream the other day as well? That was number 5. Pappenhausen. Pappenhausen's there as well. I've actually got Brimo when he's on in 6th. I think he leads this team around the back line, and I think that he's fantastic. He's obviously not been here. Philip Sammy comes back this week, as he just mentioned off the podcast, but he comes back this week, and there is just so much going on right now. We've got young Tonamapia, who's out with injury right now, who was fantastic when he played. There's just so much good things that are looking towards this for this club. The only thing that I think is a difficult thing to talk about is our hookers. Look, our halves are a little bit inexperienced, but Fogarty, obviously, he was fantastic. He really led the way. Obviously, people do have their concerns about Ash Taylor, but he went off with a HIA. I'm sorry, but you can't just say he lied down. Like he went off with a HIA. Yeah, he's not exactly been unreal, but we've obviously seen him play a couple of games where he has been unreal, and he has shown that his potential is still there. But I think our hookers is where we've got to look at the most first, because obviously, Aaron Clark is there. We've got Mitch Rain, and then, Nathan Peace has just completely fallen off the wagon. I don't know if that's just fallen off the wagon or...
Have you found a hooker that you've locked, though? Mitch Rain and Aaron Clark seem to be different weeks. It
seems different weeks. That's the thing, and I'll let you talk in a second. But like Aaron Clark, I prefer Aaron Clark personally. But yeah, it does seem like Holbrook is still testing out the waters. This is a testing out the waters kind of year for us. We're not gonna if we did happen to make the finals, we're not gonna last long. We're gonna be our first week. You know what I mean? Like we're not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about coming 11th, 12th, 11th. That's where I'm aiming to achieve this year, 12th probably, and that's a positive season for us. I think that this year is all about testing out those hookers, testing out our team. And I think that's exactly what Holbrook's doing. And he knows this year, as long as we don't come last, and I'm pretty sure the Bulldogs, I'm pretty sure they're locked in for last. I'm pretty certain I can say it at this point. I hate to say it, but I think the Dogs are locked in for last. So, as long as we can finish probably above 14th, I'd be quite happy with that.
It'd be good to see the Titans finish outside the bottom 4. I think that's your goal that you should set for sure. I'm worried about the level of consistency, but the side coming through, and especially going into next year, looks really good. We mentioned Moe Fodawaker, the signing of Herman SASA, really good forward. There's a lot of young talent coming through, even Aaron Clark. It's good to see young actual talent, not just young players, but young talented players being recruited to play with the Gold Coast Titans. And the coaching style of Justin Holbrook, you can see improvements. And I guess you can kind of see an adapted game change as such. I mean, it's always the same footy, but I feel like we're watching a different style of footy that the Titans are playing, and I think it's working for them.
I want to throw this one out there, and I don't necessarily think it's an option, but I want to throw this one out there because, and I don't think it's an option, but we have got a lot of young players across the park right now. There is a lot of youthful inexperience across the park. That definitely has a lot of potential, but there's no one there who really can guide everyone as an experienced player. Cameron Smith's off contract at the end of the year. He's 40 years old. He's off contract. He's from Queensland. He had made a comment here or there in the last couple of years that he could be interested in going to the Titans. But he's now 40 years old. And that would sort out our hooker problem for next year, I guess. What would you say in regards to that? Because he has put it out there in the last couple of years that he would be up to it.
Nah, I'm sorry. I can't agree with that one. I think Cameron Smith's coming close to the end of his career. I couldn't see him lasting much longer than this year, next year. I think he'll finish his career with the Storm. He's been with the Storm for a while. Obviously, he was a junior around the Brisbane Gold Coast area, but
would have said that about Cronk, though, wouldn't you?
you probably would have. You probably would have back then, but I don't know. It would be a good option at hooker, yes, because you'd have that versatile and kind of depth. You've got experience, and then you've got. Well, I think even you mentioned Ryan James. I think that's one good member of the team that provides experience.
Yeah,
I think that's someone who can kind of even Kevin Proctor. But I personally see Kevin Proctor 1 to 2 years left.
Yeah, fair. Well, how old is Kev? Isn't he like in his late 20s, like early 30s?
I'll have a look. I don't know. I got a gut feeling.
I'm not too sure how old he is. Hold on, I'll have Kevin Proctor.
Kevin Proctor, beat you to it. Kevin Proctor is 31 years old.
31 years old. 2 years. Well, you know, it's not completely out of question. 31, 33 years old, but surely he would be wanting to go on a little bit longer than that as a forward. You know, forwards can still go on till like they're like 35, 36, you know what I mean? Like they go out longer because forwards are the ones who really should be peaking at a later age. Anyway, point of the matter is I'm not saying that Cameron Smith's coming to the Titans at all. I'm just saying that he's definitely put it out there that he would be interested in it. I doubt he's going to get another contract from the Storm. I doubt they're going to have Harry Curran and buddy Brandon Smith there. So they're not going to have any need for him. He's done everything he can to help out that club over the years and has also guided those two guys. There's no need for him there. Yes, Cameron Smith could easily retire, and that's probably the more likely option. But I feel like if he wanted to go back up to Queensland and retire in Queensland, he could get one last payday at the Titans, who would need a hooker and a very experienced player. And in a year that people are saying that there is potential of a bit of an underdog, you know, getting around that final spot. Because if you can get Cameron Smith into that team, I tell you what, that would definitely change it. But look, let's get off the Titans. West Tigers, you know, they come up against the Rabbitohs. They lost. Are you done now? Have this little thing that you've got going on? Are you done now with this little thing you've got with the Tigers making the A? You know, this they're not kind of shit thing that you've got going on? Because I think you need to be done.
They're not shit. They're not shit. Tigers fans, you're not shit, and you've got a lot of. He disagrees. You've got a lot to be proud of. Obviously, you suffered a loss against the Rabbitohs, but I think you've been playing well.
Who have they played? Who have they played?
Yeah, he's got a point. And I don't have the Tigers in the 8. I'll say that now. I don't think Tigers are making the 8. I can see them finishing around 9th, 10th. I'm going to say 10th because Tigers fans will not
I want you to say it. I want you to say what you actually think. I want you to say what you actually think right now. No, you don't think 10th. I know you don't.
I think Tigers will finish 9th. Do you agree?
Yes, I don't agree, but I will hope so. No. I hope so.
Well, they're definitely not a bottom 4 team.
No, they're not bottom 4 team. No. They're not bottom 4 team. They're probably, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if they still drop to quite a few places, but they're not a bottom 4 team. Look, as I say every week, and we're not going to go into more about this. I just want to kind of get this shit thing out of your system. I want to get whatever this thing is you have with the Tigers right now, this fascination with the Tigers, out of your system, because we're going to see if they lose to the Broncos this week, you better damn well have this shit out of your system. You better damn well have this shit out of your system by come next week when we're on the podcast. But look, the Tigers. Do I see them being above Cronulla? I actually don't. See them being above Cronulla. I don't think Cronulla make the 8 anymore. Get that shit out of here. And you better damn well not say... Actually, we both said... I said Sharks last week. You said Tigers last week. We both just said they're not going to be. Manly, I've still got going in the 8. You know, Dragons are a little sneaky outside of here.
Dragons! All over them.
Well, they're a little sneaky outside of here. Not that I think that, but I think they'll finish above the Tigers. I think the Tigers still finish above the Cowboys because the Cowboys are dreadful.
Yeah.
Warriors are dreadful. They'll finish above the Warriors. Brisbane, I don't really know what to say about. I have a feeling they could actually win a few games when they have their players come back. Titans, I don't think we finish above the Tigers, but then again, we beat the Tigers. You know, there is every chance that we could finish above the Tigers too. But the Tigers are on 8 points and the Titans are on 6 points. You know, that's the thing. Second last is only 2 points out of the 8. It's one win out of the 8. Second last to 8th place right now.
Crazy.
After 9 rounds, second last to 8th place is 1 win. Yes, our for and against is absolutely abysmal, minus 123, and the Tigers is 20. But I'm telling you, like that's That's out of control. I don't expect him at the 8. But if you're a Tigers fan, you'd be like, well, wait a second. Everyone's been talking so positively about this team. We haven't played anybody yet. And don't forget that. You haven't played anybody yet. But, we're only 2 points above the Titans or the Warriors or the Broncos, who have been slaughtered this season. So it shows the clear difference. Between, buddy, it shows the clear difference between the top 6 to the bottom 8, you know what I mean? Like bottom 9. Even Canberra's there, but still, I don't know. But anyway, get that shit out of your system. Next up, let's talk about the coaches. All right, the coaches being scapegoated. This is a good one. Are coaches being scapegoated? I have a really domineering opinion about this, and I say this all the time. But you can go first. What are your thoughts right now? Because obviously Dean Pay has quit. Definitely with the 2 fingers here, has quit. What are your thoughts? Do you think coaches are being blamed too much?
Both. It's both yes and no. I think it relies on both. There are a lot of factors to take in regards to a coach either leaving or being sacked from a club, or even a player leaving or being sacked from a club. It comes down to the fact that someone like Dean Pay has not been able to deliver results for this Dogs side. I guess it can be argued because they made that charge, and I put in 2 fingers charge towards finals last year, that people went, Doggies are making finals in the last 5 weeks. And I was thinking, hell no, that's not happening. Yes and no. They are being scapegoated in the sense that the media and a lot of things are relying on them to be sacked and calling for them to be sacked. But in regards to the player, they're putting behind that full support. But a team like the Bulldogs, I'm sorry, you've got, I guess, the experience of Kieran Foran and a performer like Josh Jackson, but what have they got? What have they got that he can possibly work with to push this side to a top 8 team? You signed Luke Thompson and Dallin Waiteni-Selesniak.
You could argue that's his fault, though.
The same thing goes with Stephen Kearney, though. Who have the Warriors got besides
you could argue that's his fault, though.
You know,
you can argue that's his fault. Now, when I say that, you're probably thinking, okay, I'm not saying it's the coach's fault, but you can. I am saying it's the coach's fault in regards to that. And yes, it is a 2-way street. It's definitely a 2-way street. However, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. You can lead the horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink. And what I'm saying there is that you can teach the players everything you know. You can give them the best possible lineup. You can give them the best possible system, but that doesn't mean that they're going to fit into that system, or they're going to want to fit into that system, or they're going to do well in that system. It's difficult because, you're a coach. You need to bring the players in who fit your system. And that's what I feel like Justin Holbrook is doing with the Titans. There are a lot of teams who do this really well. The Roosters obviously are perfect with this. That's why they're so fantastic. Coaches need to bring in, and the media can't make up a story about a coach potentially being sacked, because if they're talking about that, it means the fans are talking about that, because it means people are clicking on the article. It means that there is a genuine chance that they're obviously not doing well. They can't just say, buddy, Trent Robinson looks like he's going to get sacked, because he's not going to get sacked, because he's bloody fantastic. So there has to be a reasoning for it. Yes, coaches are being scapegoated more so than they probably deserve to be. Dean Pay, I would argue he's been given enough time, and he hasn't done enough with that club that he probably should have. And yes, that is the team that he is built around. And the Dogs, the thing is, though, is that I don't necessarily believe that it's Dean Pay's fault. I actually can't believe it's Des Hasler's fault. I think he left Dean Pay in an absolute rabble. I think he left him in a rabble. And I feel like Dean Pay just wasn't the guy to get him out of that rabble. I reckon Dean Pay might have been all right if he came into a team that wasn't in the situation that Des left him in. Des gave, that club, when he was there, gave contracts with massive back-ended contracts. And that screwed Dean. Look, I'm not saying that Dean wasn't at fault, but I'm saying that Dean was on a real... He pulled a short straw in regards to where that Bulldogs team was when he picked him up. And he just wasn't the team to get him out of that shithole. And they're in a shithole, straight up. And Bulldogs fans would 100% agree with that. We can ask Jas about this next week when he's on the podcast. He's a Bulldogs fan. But, yeah, look, I think that they're being scapegoated more than they should be, because the players definitely are. they definitely are to blame massively as well. I'd actually say it's probably 60-40 in favour of players blame over coaches blame, because I'd not even say 70-30 in a way. But look at the Broncos, for example. Those players came out and said, this is what the media says, so take this with a grain of salt. But apparently the Broncos took their own training session and put the reliability on themselves this week and said, if we lose, it is our fault. It's not the coach's fault. So I guess they were kind of going against Seabold there, which is a bit of a kind of like they're a bit of a coup in the Brisbane Broncos ranks. But that's just the media talking there. So I don't know if that's the case. But they won. So you can look into that what you will. But yeah, I think it's difficult I think it's a mix of both. But I think it's 70-30 in favour of players' fault, if I'm going to talk some statistics on it. What do you reckon?
I have to think of it in regards to a statistic. As I said, I just think it's a two-way thing. But I think it does come down to the players and their performance. And doesn't matter if it's the best coach. Trent Robinson could tell Tim Laffey to play his best footy, teach him his best footy, but you can't guarantee that a player will turn up and play their best footy. You can't control that. Only they can, and it comes down to who they are and their playing abilities. So I think the coaches have part to do with it, but I think it's more in regards to player performances. And I think that's what we've seen with the Bulldogs not putting in those performances and obviously finishing outside the 8 for a consistent number of seasons now. 6, I think.
They lost their forward battle. They used to have the best forwards in the game, and now
the Dogs of War.
Dogs of War it used to be, and now it's the Dogs of bloody. I was about to say a bad word there. Dogs of I don't know really. I don't know. Dogs of bloody.
The Dogs of Soft.
Yeah, actually, just quickly, and then we're going to move on quickly because we don't have too much longer. But who would you say has the best forward pack? Actually, going into next year, who would you say has the top 3 best forward packs in the league?
You can't put it past the Roosters with Maria Hargraves, Takiaho, Cordner.
Mm-hmm.
In second, I might sound a bit biased here. I think I'd put Parramatta.
I haven't got Parramatta in my top 3.
You haven't? Yeah. Well, I don't want to put them in my top 3 as such, but I think it comes down to the ability of how they've been able to offload and things this year, which is what I kind of think of Manly last year with their ability to offload is why their 4-pack was so good. As for third, I don't know.
So you're wiping out Broncos here. But then again, they might lose David.
Well, they're not at full strength. I'm talking
about next year.
At full strength. Okay, well, yeah. Okay, well, Brisbane in third, yeah.
But if you take David Feeder and put him in the Gold Coast Titans, I reckon Titans are in top 3. Because Mwaki Fotuaika, Tino,
I was tempted to pick Titans then, but
it's just the back line is confusing. But yeah, it's a difficult one. It's actually quite a few teams, but it's definitely not the Dogs anymore. That's the point. The point is the Dogs would always be top 3 usually, but I wouldn't even put them in the top 8. I honestly put them nearly. And Josh Jackson's great, but he's probably the only forward that I can. He's the only forward I can think of right now. He's literally the only forward I can think of at the Dogs, and that's not a normal thing. So let's move on from that and let's quickly jump into our last topic, which will be the Raiders game. Raiders obviously versus the Melbourne Storm. And interesting one, that one. What were your thoughts on that?
I don't use the term robbery at all, mate. I don't use the term robbery much at all, but the Raiders were robbed. And it's not about... The thing about robbery is that you need a team to put in an 80-minute performance, which is what I don't think Manly did against Parramatta in that round 3 or 4 game.
Are you saying Manly aren't robbed?
Manly weren't robbed at that time. We've already addressed that. Oh, whoop-de-doo. But
they got taken away a fair try in the 80th minute of the game that won them the game. How is that not a robbery? That's literally
We're here to speak about the Raiders, not the Manly Seagulls here.
Continue. Don't ever bring that up again, and don't ever say that wasn't a robbery again, because that was 80th minute on this. Anyway, continue. Talk about the Raiders game, you bugs, you bloody bastard. I tell you, how dare you?
The poor Raiders. I'm pretty sure the Storm went into this game as favourites. They went in underdogs a couple of days prior, but then they went in as favourites. And the Raiders now, especially losing Josh Hodgson in the first half. For me, this is going to sound tough. I can't see the Raiders even winning a grand final without a player like Josh Hodgson. I think they've still got a very quality side like your Nickel Clockstad, your Jack Whiten. But I think they put in such a performance against Canberra, and against Melbourne, and they often do. But for them to do what they did and lose members of their squad, but there were some shocking calls against them. Not only shocking calls, but this whole set restart seems to be favouring teams. And in the last 2 weeks, the team that it's favoured, for mine, has been the Melbourne Storm.
Last 2 weeks, last 20 years, mate. We talking set restarts, a couple of weeks, but I'm talking about in regards to referee favoritism has come for the last 20 years, mate.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not having a crack at the Storm there, but look, I'm not going to say. There's no actual official way of saying there was a robbery. I think the Raiders got heavily outdone by the referees. I think they were heavily disadvantaged. But the word robbery is as if the word robbery is it's been literally stolen from your grasp. Now, if that game was fairly refereed, it's quite even. I don't know who wins that game in a really fair, even game. I think the Raiders probably had the edge, but in the same sense, the Storm were still quite good. I know they were completely and utterly given a lot of advantages, but in the same sense, I can't 100% say that if that game is fairly refereed, 100% guaranteed that the Raiders win that game. So that's why I can't say it's a robbery. And that's why the Manly game is a robbery, because you can say if that call is made the correct way, that Manly do win that game. So that's why that's a robbery. And that's a fact. That's a fact. The Raiders, it's outrageous. They got completely unfairly disadvantaged, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But like I said, do you agree with me when I said that in regards to the way a robbery should be defined and the way of the word robbery?
Yes.
Can you 100% say that Raiders would have won that game? 100%, without a doubt. Fact. Say that Raiders would have won that
100%, maybe not. Extremely likely. Extremely likely. If these calls went the way they should have, I thought there was some shocking calls. The bunker even said that the wrong hand for Cameron Smith's knock-on captain's challenge. They said his left hand touches the ball when it was his right hand. It just...
Yeah.
There's some shit calls.
Yeah, watch some shit calls. But guys, that will wrap us up for the NRL this week. Obviously, if you want to see our NRL tips for the week, jump over to the In the Sheds Podcast YouTube channel where we do our NRL tips, AFL tips, Super Rugby tips, A-League tips, and we will see you over there in just a few moments. Next up, guys, and finally, we do have the Super Rugby. Now, not only do we have Super Rugby Etoroa, I like putting on the accent every single time, but also we've got Super Rugby AU, which was a little bit surprising, actually. And I'm going to flip out on the Melbourne Rebels player who kicked the ball with a minute to go. I don't know who you are, but I will find you, and I will slap your face if I ever find out who you damn well are. But anyway, let's get into the Super Rugby Etoroa, which was Crusaders and the Blues game. That was a sexy game. I told you it'd be a sexy game. It was a sexy damn well game. The Crusaders did come out on top 26-15, but holy damn, that was a very close game. That was a very, very, very close game. And it was nail-biting until the last few seconds when the Crusaders scored a try in the final few moments. And then also the Hurricanes over the Highlanders, 17-11. Yes, the Hurricanes. They got a nice little cheeky little tip there. Massive underdog there. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Etoroa games first before we get into the Australian games. So Crusaders Blues, mate. What were your thoughts on that little beauty?
How friggin' good was that? How good. That was probably one of the first games I've watched. Look, I'm not huge on rugby union. So for me to watch a half, I think that's pretty big. For the star player to not play in the side until about the 60th minute, though, that was a real shock for me. I was really shocked that Jordan didn't come on the field. But this Blues outfit, they look like the real deal. They couldn't get the win, but they should be very proud of this performance against the Crusaders. They kept it close for a lot of this match, and they played a really good style of footy. And it was a great game. And how good were the charge downs in this game? The charge downs were on another level. It almost had a grand final feel to it.
Yeah, I was 100%. I wish there was a final in this tournament because these two teams would be in the final. Look, I think that if you're a Blues fan, you should definitely be happy. I'm happy with my tip of the Blues. Yes, it didn't come off, but if this was, I'm telling you right now, when you play, this is how you've got to hope, Blues fans. This is how you've got to hope. The Blues will play the Crusaders one more time this season, and that's going to be in Auckland. That's going to be at your home ground. But they lost that game because that crowd, firstly, sold out, was phenomenal for the Crusaders. So I believe you win that game in Auckland against the Crusaders when you play them there next. So what you need to hope for is that the Crusaders fall they lose one game here or there, whether it be to a rando Chiefs outfit that should get their win very soon. I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if it's next week, the week after. But the Chiefs will get a win sometime. I don't know when. And Crusaders are a team that want to get it against. So whenever the Chiefs play the Crusaders, I'd watch out for that one. It's a little sneaky option. But, the Blues are just got to hope that if the Hurricanes or the Highlanders or the Chiefs can pick up a win randomly at some point against Crusaders. And I still think the Blues are a genuine shot at winning the title. They're $1.22, I think, the Crusaders right now. But the Blues are a dead set. They're a good team. They haven't even used, Dan Carter. They haven't even used Dan Carter this year. It's out of control. He's obviously there for the experience. They haven't even used him. But look, the Blues, I really liked them. I thought they were fantastic. I thought that they were. I thought they were on top until probably the 50th or 60th minute. Probably the 55th minute when they scored the try. That's it. That's right. Okay, this is where the Blues lost the game. Rieko Ioane scores a try. Takes it to a 6-point lead right in front of the posts. And then Terry Black goes for the conversion and it gets charged down for the conversion from right in front. So it was 100%. This is how the Blues lost the game. Blues win that game if they get that kick. And I'll tell you that right now. I can guarantee you it. The Blues were well on top. They were well on top until that point. And then I said on my live stream, I said, that is just costing the game because it went from being an 8-point lead, which is more than a try. Blues get the ball back, 8-point try, an 8-point lead to a 6-point lead. Then from the resulting play, the Crusaders do a short kickoff, they get the ball and they score immediately, and they got by 1 point. So even if that had have happened after they got the kick, they would still be down by 1 point. But because they missed that kick, Terry Black was lazy. It was lazy. I'm not going to say anything besides it was lazy. Because you can't do that. You can't allow that. You need to kick that faster. You're in front of the post. Like, you're not on the wing. You're in front of the post. You kick that as fast as you kick that at normal pace. You don't just slowly walk up. Anyway, I think that cost them the game. And then from then on, the Crusaders just went bang, 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 bang. They were just dominant because they changed the game like that. I honestly need to blame Terry Black. You can't blame one player for a loss. But I nearly blame Terry Black. I nearly do, because that was just unacceptable. It was unacceptable. And that's why I think the Blues, I genuinely believe they would have won that game. I genuinely believe that they would definitely, I would have said they were definitely going to win that game. I think that completely changed the perception of how everyone saw that game. And then the Crusaders in that last 20 minutes, they just pumped them. They just absolutely pumped them. They said, you know what, if you're going to give us this opportunity, well, guess what? We're going to score, try here, another try, and a penalty goal. I tell you what, like that was... And the last try was sealed. It was in the 75th minute. So the Blues were still in it. But do you disagree with me? Do you believe...
No, I don't disagree at all. I think that was a game-changing moment. The Blues were still in it, putting a great performance, showing that they are a quality side and a genuine contender. If not the only contender, probably. It's probably between the Blues and the Crusaders at the moment.
Well, the Hurricanes might argue that, but in the same sense, I agree. Yeah, I agree. But as we talk about that, let's talk about the Hurricanes and the Highlanders game very briefly. So, Hurricanes, they won 17-11. You went with the Highlanders. I went the Hurricanes. I originally went with the Highlanders, but then I tipped the Hurricanes because I realised the Hurricanes were at home, and also because I thought they've been impressive recently. I thought that they realised their mistakes when they played the Crusaders, where they probably should have won, but they kept going for the 3-pointer. They kept going for the penalty. They kept going for the field goal. They took like 6 or 7 3-pointers in that game, and they realised their mistakes, and then they changed against the Chiefs, and they won that game, and then they've gone and done that against... They've gone down against the Highlanders, and I think that the Hurricanes are definitely on the right track. I had the Hurricanes to finish 5th this year, and it still wouldn't surprise me. But in the same sense, I think that the Chiefs are probably locked in for that right now. Maybe the Highlanders still, but I think that this performance showed me that I was wrong in regards to the Highlanders being unlucky. I think that this performance showed me that the Highlanders aren't unlucky; they're just not up to the standards, and I don't think they can. And look, every game has been close. But I haven't watched the other Highlanders games. And I looked at the score lines to tell me kind of what was with the Highlanders. And if anything was to go by, they got dominated in that Hurricanes game. They got dominated. And they only lost by 6 points. So they were still in it. So if I'm going to take that game and give that a reasoning for the other games as well, I would nearly say that I was wrong about the Highlanders. And they're not unlucky. What were your thoughts on that game?
Well, it's more comes down to possession and things like that and who's in control. And the Hurricanes proved that they were in control over the Highlanders, and we've both claimed that they were unlucky, but I think I'd agree with you. It comes down to your missed tackles, your percentages, different things like that. And I think that's why the Highlanders aren't winning their games, because they're not competing. They're definitely competing at a level of Super Rugby that should be done. But I think they need to be better. And I think they need to be better real quick.
I'm just looking at the ladder here. If the Hurricanes were to, I don't rate. Highlanders have got 1 win. I can't see them catching the Crusaders. But the Hurricanes have got 2 wins, and the Crusaders are on 4 wins. So the Hurricanes would need to rely on the Blues beating the Crusaders when they play at Auckland, and then also the Hurricanes getting a win or 2 against the Crusaders and the Blues as well to be in it. So not out of the question. They probably deserve to. They probably, if they had realised not to go for the threes every 2 seconds, they would have beaten the Crusaders, but they didn't. So simple as that. So I wouldn't put them out of the question right now. I wouldn't put them out of the question. And this week they're playing they're playing the Blues. This is the week they need to do something. If they want to be a contender this year, it has to be this week against the Blues. But then again, the Blues are obviously, they're just, so it's scary. It's scary times for the Hurricanes. But I think that'll do us for the Super Rugby Aotearoa. And let's get into our tips that are in the Sheds Podcast YouTube channel. Finally, guys, let's talk about the Super Rugby Australia. Now, there was actually quite a few. There was only 2 games. But there was a couple of interesting games, really interesting games. And the Rebels, 18-18 with the Reds. If I ever see whoever kicked, I don't know who, I'm going to click right now. I'm going to find out what player kicked. Actually, it doesn't show me who kicked it. 77th and a half minute. I tipped the Rebels, you tipped the Reds, right? You had no right getting that tip right. You had absolutely zero right getting that tip right. The Rebels were on top pretty much the entirety of the game. I think they were on top of the entirety of the game. 77th and a half minute, the Rebels have the ball. All you need to do is hold the ball 2 minutes. Just pump the forwards and then just, kick the ball out. And what do? Somebody toss bag gets the ball and kicks it. The Reds catch it. They go down the left wing immediately and score straight away to tie the game up. Now, it ended up in a draw. It probably should have ended up in a Reds win in the end, in the extra time, but they missed a penalty from far out. What are your thoughts on this one? Because I don't believe the Reds deserve to get a draw, but it's the first draw in Super Rugby Australian history, and it is a draw, and no matter what arguments I have, and tell you what, should be up by 1 more tip. But anyway, what were your thoughts?
Pretty crazy that it was a draw. Pretty damn crazy, because the Reds, they didn't deserve it. It was a late comeback, but I guess if you can put in that late comeback, then maybe they do deserve it. But very funny that we both picked the winner here, and I'll take it.
How dare you? Next up, we got the Waratahs. Actually, well, look, I think that shows both teams. Reds are a young up-and-coming team. Rebels are a team that are underrated this year. Before the game, I would have taken a draw. After the game, I'm like, you're an idiot, whoever kicked that ball. Anyway, let's move on to the next game, which was the Waratahs 23 over the Western Force 14. Now, the reason why I say this is interesting, because if you look at this result straight up, you're just like, okay, Waratahs beat, the National Rugby Championship team by 9 points. Now, we did have someone comment on the Inshed podcast channel saying, look, it's not like the Western Force have been inactive for years. I never said that. They've just played in the National Rugby Championship. Yes, they did win last year, but the Fiji and Drua, I'd argue, is still the best team in that competition. I don't care they didn't win last year. I still would argue they were the better team last year. You can argue that all you like, but the point is the Western Force have been in subpar competitions. So I know they haven't been inactive, and I never said they were inactive, but they have been in the lower division competitions, whether it be around the world or it be in the National Rugby Championship. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the Force were actually leading in this game. They were up 14-0, mate. They were up 14-0 in this game, which is crazy. And the Waratahs came back and won 23-14. But the Force, can we bring back the badge? I want to bring back the badge, mate. I want to see the badge come back. Cummins. I'll tell you what, that'd be nice. But what were your thoughts on this?
Well, they looked really dangerous, and I didn't personally watch much of the game, but I kept checking the scoreline going, the Force is still winning. They're winning again. They've scored again. They're doing it. But obviously the Waratahs came back to win it, and they were the favourites going into it, but the Force have showed that they're going to be hopefully it's not a one-off. They're going to be a genuine side this year that are threats.
Maybe if they're playing at home, do they get to play over in Western Australia? Or I don't know, actually. I'm not too sure if they get to play over in Western Australia because I don't know if the teams will fly over there for one game and then fly back, you know what I mean, with all this shit going on. So I don't actually know. I think Western Force might have to play a home game, maybe at Brookvale Oval or something like that, like Melbourne Rebels do. Because it doesn't have, I'm looking here at the home game. Oh, HBF Park. No, it is over in Perth, HBF Park. Okay. So Western Force apparently are playing over there for their home games, which is interesting because the teams have to go all the way over there and come back, and especially in these conditions right now, which doesn't make sense. But anyway, but yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. Waratahs, I think that shows a lot about them this year too. But in the same sense, it is what it is. I thought that was a pretty nifty round. Let's have a look at the ladder. So the Reds are on top right now with 6 points. Brumbies on 5 points, but they've only played one game. The Waratahs on 5 points. They've played 2 games. Melbourne Rebels have got 2 points. They've played 2 games. They haven't won yet. And the Western Force have not obviously won a game yet. So they're on 0 points. But interesting times in Super Rugby AU. And now it's time to get into our tips. Anyway, guys, that is going to do us for today's video. We have gone through absolutely everything. We've also done A-League tips for all you Australian football fans out there on the Interchats Podcast YouTube channel. So definitely go across there and check it out. Yeah, we've done basically everything in Rugby League, AFL, and Super Rugby. So you can't bloody complain about us not getting your sport. And next week we'll do A-League as well. But that is going to do it for today. Thanks for Hayden for jumping on here as per usual. And let's get a good week going here. AFL, I think I've got 2 tips different to yours. Rugby League, got a few different tips different.
Oh, the Broncos.
Buddy, get your shit out of here with the bloody damn Bronco, buddy. Come on, Titans, son. Come on, the Titans. But yeah, like I said, guys, that's going to do us today. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Hit the little ding-a-ling-a-ling notification bell so you get a notification every time we upload. Also, hit that thumbs up button, and that is going to do us. So we appreciate you as always. And thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.